If you've ever taken a music theory class and gone to the part about part writing and been told, hey, can you play a D chord? Let's say you do this D chord, A, D, A on top with the F on the bottom, D minor, and your teacher says, go to C. So you go. You're going to get everything wrong if you're doing a common practice period test, because you're going to be told you can't just go from this open fifth D chord to this open fifth C chord. You have parallel fifth, you have parallel octaves, and what your teacher will typically say is something like, Bach would never do that. Bach would not write an open fifth C chord and then just march it down. That's not a very good sound for that era, and since we're trying to imitate that era, you can't do that part writing. But in this video, I'm going to show you a part of a piece where Bach literally does just that. Seemingly breaking one of the most sacred rules of music theory, a rule that probably caused some of you to fail music theory, or at the very least, get a bad grade instead of a good grade on a test. Well, this moment happens near the end of his G minor toccata. Let's listen to just a moment at the beginning to remind some of you how it goes, maybe if you've never heard it before, just to give you a sense of how it starts. Bach's keyboard toccatas tend to start out with an improvisational section like this. Improvisational meaning not that you literally improvise it, but it sounds like it could have been improvised, right? You could have sat down at the piano and gone. And then they will go on to a fugue, or in this case, multiple fugues as the piece goes along. I don't want this video to be like a whole 30-minute introduction to this piece. I want it to be more focused on the parallel fifth section. So we're going to skip ahead to the final fugue when we hear this. Now, I just said skip ahead to the end where the fugue happens. By no means do I imply the fugue is at the very end of the piece. This is just a final of the sections. We still have half the piece left. This is a huge fugue, but this is our subject for the fugue. I'm using this really cool public domain recording of a harpsichord playing this, which I think sounds awesome, but just sorry that the timbre is so jarring going from that, and also the tuning from that too. But notice how the subject starts. We have this very fourth C jump going. We have up a fourth, again, again. Then the second half is just kind of this wiggle on three notes. Now with a fugue, you always want to take a couple seconds to kind of understand and appreciate what the subject is doing. That's why we just now did that. Kind of said, okay, there's kind of this upward motion with the fourth, because it's a fugue. This subject should come back like 100 times in a bunch of different ways. And in fact, the very next thing that should happen is a second voice should enter at the fifth, either a fifth higher or fourth lower. And we get it immediately in the alto, but a fifth higher. This is perfect. This is what it should do. We kind of go from G minor to D minor, which is a fifth higher. But you notice while the second voice is doing that, the first voice has gone on, is now playing something different. It's going. Now at this point, we expect a third voice to enter back in the original key, using those same kind of upward moving fourth jumps. And if you just look at the score for a second, now that you know that, it's pretty obvious. It's the bass down there. This also follows kind of the classic pattern of voices entering. You want voices to enter in an order that keeps the new voice on the outside, so it's easier to hear. So we started with a tenor, then we added an alto, which was the highest voice when we heard it, and then we added a bass, which when it enters is the lowest voice we hear. Check out the harpsichord playing that. Now at this moment, we really don't know what's going to happen next. Most fugues, most of them, are 3 or 4 voices. If it's a 3-voice fugue, we've already introduced tenor, alto, bass, all 3 voices. We would now move on with some episode or something different. If it's a 4-voice fugue, we still have to introduce the soprano. Check out what happens next. And the soprano now is in the key of 5 again. Sorry. You might be looking at the right-hand chords there and thinking, oh, is this the moment I'm talking about where we have the fifth? But no, Bach is very careful to avoid that sound. He has a fifth with an octave. He collapses it down to a sixth. Now, I have some videos out where I've talked more at length about fugues and how they work, so I'm not going to get as deep in this video. Let me know down in the comments if you want me to link you to one where it's more detailed. But for right now, just kind of know fugues start out with an exposition of the subject. So all the voices, if there's 3, if there's 4, they should all get a turn doing the melody, and they go in an order of original key, key of 5, original key, if you need another one, key of 5. It was a 5-voice fugue, back to the original key. We've done that, so at this moment, we don't really know what the fugue is going to do. It's pretty much an open slate. We should do some kind of episode that could happen in the form of sequences. We could restate the melody. We could do the melody in a new key. If you've been around a few of these fugue analysis videos, you know that a really common thing to do in a minor key is get to the key of 3, which would be B flat. So we can kind of look for something like that. Wouldn't be overly shocking. Let's see where Bach goes next. Now, I don't know if you can hear it in there, but actually the original subject just showed up again in an inner voice. But don't be led astray. Don't think, oh, this is a 5-voice fugue. It's not. Do you see 5 voices at once? No, this is just the alto going, hey, I want to do the original melody again. I think it actually does the whole thing, if I remember right. It continues with. Now, I don't want to show you the sheet music yet for this next section. I want you to listen to it first and see if you can hear what's going on here. Okay, if it's hard to hear, let me play the subject for you. Hopefully you feel like, I know that's our subject, right? But something's wrong. Well, look at it. The music literally says reverso in it. It's upside down. This is our, but it's been flipped. Even the second half gets flipped. Instead of it's, we start from the upper note going down. Now, right after hearing this, the soprano part gets a little jealous, right? The soprano heard the alto doing something pretty cool, taking the subject and flipping it upside down. They were already offended that the altos got to go first. There were already some fights going on there. So they were like, we're not going to let the altos get away with this. We want to take the original subject and do it too. And they do this. Which at first confused me. Is what did we just do? We did the original melody, right? The upward fourth. But then we walked down. But it's not a perfectly flipped melody. It should be A down to E, then G to D. Bach is almost like kept the downward motion of it, but made the fourth flip to the top. But instead of doing this, he kept it a fourth. So it's sort of like the fourth from the right side up one and the downward motion from the upside down one at the same time. So unsurprisingly, the soprano struggled a little bit with the theory and transposition of the whole thing. I'm kidding, of course. This is Bach's kind of way of saying, hey, by the way, downward fourth, upwards fifth, upwards fourth, downwards fifth. Things can kind of get turned around this piece, and it's sort of the creative part about having a melody that's so fourths and fifthsy at its core. Now, at this point, Bach starts to do what he typically does in his big fugues, which is to show off all the cool things that this melody can do. Like, for example, here's it in C minor. Here's it again flipped upside down in a different voice in C minor. In fact, we actually do get to a major key. Eventually, we get to the key of E flat major. We actually get this sound. If you're looking at your music, you might see those fifths going to fifths and thinking this is the moment the video is about. But actually, these are diminished fifths going to perfect fifth. So this is definitely something that you're allowed to do. Diminished fifth to perfect fifth, but it does look a little weird and feel a little weird in the fingers to go. Now I'm going to save lots of the middle parts of this fugue for you guys to listen to on your own because we want to get to the end. I want to help you make sense of the crazy part that I start the video with the fourths and the fifths, the reason you are here, the way that Bach broke his own rules. Well, just to remind you, it sounds like this, which feels so wrong to play. There's something like finger sense when you play a lot of Bach where your fingers don't want to do certain things. You might think it's like freshman theory where you're not allowed to write perfect fifths and perfect octaves, and it is kind of, honestly, when you play a lot of Bach, your fingers get a little bit like, what am I doing wrong? You kind of look at the score again, like, I can't possibly be going. And that's the thing for me that I noticed when I was learning this piece was it felt wrong in my hands. Because when you look at it, look at this music here. It doesn't look bad. Do you see the parallel fifths and octaves? You don't. They are disguised. You see there is voices, and each voice makes sense. Here's the melody, the alto part. Here's the soprano. And here's the tenor. The tenor's just. So when you put all that together, you have ADA, then play it all again and march it all down. Again, if you look at it with your eyes, you might miss it at first because you see the parts skipping, but they're not, and your fingers are just going. So that's why Bach kind of breaks his own rules. He's actually following his rules of part writing for the most part because you're not really doing parallel fifths. You're doing fifth to an octave. The octave then collapses to a fifth, and then you have another fourth. But if you look at just the tenor and the alto, you get this. But it's actually not this, but it's actually... They jump over where they were, which gets around the fourth and the fifth issue with the soprano. It does kind of break another rule of part writing, which is leaping over top of or below where a previous voice just was. But yes, this is how Bach kind of circumvents this issue. He wants to write this crazy line. I'm guessing he did on purpose. But technically, my hands are not doing this. But I can't actually reach it this way, but they are flipping around each other to avoid the perfect fifths and perfect octaves. You notice also that Bach saves this really cool flipping of the voices to avoid the parallel fifths and octaves for near the very end of the entire fugue. I'm sure this is intentional on his part, right? Pulling out all the stops, saying, did you know here's yet another way you can make something work? In this case, even seemingly break some of the rules, but it makes a super epic, powerful right at the end of the fugue. Okay, last thing before you go. Do not show this video to your music theory professor and say, here's a YouTuber that said you're allowed to write parallel fifths and parallel octaves in Bach, and I should be able to do that in my music theory class. It's not the point of this video. Actually, if you look at a piece like this, it's great confirmation that you should not write fifths and octaves all over your 18th century counterpoint homework because, in general, Bach didn't do that. Okay, it's super rare. I'm showing you a couple measures out of this entire piece, out of all the toccatas, or there could be other examples in the toccatas, but very small number of notes in total we're talking about compared to this entire piece. So yes, in general, this does not sound very much like Baroque music. Okay, that's not the point of this video. It's also not the point of the video to say Bach is terrible and can't compose. It's showing you how clever he is doing something that is seemingly outside of his style, outside of his era, and making it work by using this melody that has all the fourths and fifths already built in. That being said, I'm sure there'll be a good number of people who just listened to the first 10 seconds of the video and immediately scrolled down and commented, you're an idiot. I told my music theory professor, he thinks you're an idiot. We all think you're an idiot. But those of you who actually watched the video, hopefully you learned a few things about Bach, about the Baroque era, and enjoyed listening to some great music. See you guys.